What are the things that fill your life with contentment and purpose? Is it family? Is it watching the kids play? Is it watching them grow up or other types of personal situations? What is it that fills you with contentment and purpose?
Evolve,
Do you pursue
puzzle,
the things that leave you somehow
evolve,
empty inside?
puzzle.
Do you pursue things that are here for a few moments and then they're gone? I want to share with you a story today about an individual. I mean, let's face it, all of us are looking for purpose in life, aren't we? We're all looking for things that fill us with contentment and that allow us to be people that have a reason for living. And we all are looking for that place in life where we can feel comfortable. We can feel like uh, there's a reason for the things that I do. And the reason brings contentment and joy and purpose and all those things, of course. But sometimes we feel empty inside. Sometimes, in the midst of all of those pursuits, things are very, very difficult. Let me tell you about a guy from the Old Testament. His name was Solomon. According to the Hebrew Bible, as well as the Quran, believe it or not, and even the Hebrew Bible, uh, Solomon was a fabulously wealthy king and a very wise king under the United Kingdom of Israel. Solomon was a biblical king that was really most famous for the wisdom that he had. Let me tell you, kind of in a nutshell, what's going on here. You see, Solomon was a king that wanted to please God. He wanted to sacrifice to God. He wanted to do things the right way. He wanted to lead the nation of Israel toward a relationship with God. He wanted to do everything in the right order, in the right way, in a God honoring fashion, in a way that people would be inspired to continue to grow in their relationship with God. That was what Solomon was all about. And Solomon sacrificed to God and he humbled himself before God. And God was very pleased with Solomon. So, as the scriptures tell us, one night God appears to Solomon in a dream and asks Solomon what it is that he wants to receive from God, kind of as a reward, for how faithful he was and for how he was watching and looking out for, the people around him and their growing relationship with God. So God says to Solomon, "What is it that you want?" And Solomon realized that, I'm a young king. I don't have a lot of experience right now. Solomon, I think, was actually crowned king over Israel when he was about 16 years old. And he's like, I want to lead people to you. I want to represent you well, but I don't know that I'm wise enough to do that. So he asked God for wisdom. And because God established Solomon as a young king, he granted Solomon the wisdom that he asked for. Now, this wisdom that God gave Solomon, he made him a great king and made him very, very rich, made him extremely powerful, uh, very successful in all of the different things that he did. Solomon, is a name that is kind of synonymous with abundance. If you read the scriptures, here's one of the craziest facts about Solomon that just blows my mind. He had 700 wives, 700 wives, and then he had 300 concubines. And so there's 1,000 women that he's married. Can you imagine that? I mean, he had enough wives at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Solomon had a birthday cake, sitting on the table celebrating somebody's birthday, probably. But it was a sign of tremendous abundance and tremendous blessing from God. He had all of these wives. He was a wise man and known for it. He composed over 3,000 different proverbs that are recorded in scriptures. He also wrote over 1,000 different songs. He wrote several books of the scriptures of the Bible that we see today. He wrote the Song of Songs. He wrote the Book of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and that's kind of the one we're going to focus on today. Was the wisdom that Solomon shows and expresses through the book of Ecclesiastes. Let me tell you a story about Solomon and his wisdom, what he asked God for. The Bible records this situation where there's two temple prostitutes that come before God, and their argument is that there's a baby, and each one of them is saying that, this baby is my son. And nobody can figure out who's lying or who's telling the truth or who's not telling the truth. So what happens is Solomon, in his court, he says, okay, somebody bring me a sword. So they bring him a sword and they're like, what are you going to do? And he says, well, since you both laid claim to this child, let's just cut him in half and then both of you can have your child and go on. Well, all of a sudden, one of the women freaks out and she's like, no, 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 give it the baby to the other person. And Solomon, this is in his wisdom, understands that this woman that was filled with compassion for her child is even willing to give her child away if it will save the child's life. So Solomon, he makes a determination that no, you are really the mother, and that was just one example that Scripture shows of how Solomon used his wisdom to kind of bring people along and make good decisions and to lead the nation of Israel. Now, at a later point in Solomon's life, what he ended up doing was he wanted to find this perfect purpose in life. He wanted to have an existence that had meaning. He wanted the same thing all of us want in life. He wanted to know, why am I here? What am I doing? And how can I be better? And how can I lead God's people effectively and efficiently for him? How can I know this thing called contentment in my own heart? How do I do that? So he was on a journey and he decided that because God had blessed him so much and he had so many resources at his fingertips. I mean, again, the wealth and the success and all of the stuff that he had, he went on this quest to find this purpose and this meaning in life. He went and he started to do all kinds of things. He started to plant vineyards. And he started to learn and write things and educate himself. And he started looking through all of these different avenues for why he was here and how he could fill his heart with contentment. Again, something that I think many of us do all the time in life. It's not just living life, it's wanting to know why we're here and experience life in a way that has purpose and meaning behind it. This book of Ecclesiastes that he wrote, it really contains some of the phrases that we use today. Eat, drink, and be merry. That's one that comes out of the book of Ecclesiastes. Another one is there's nothing new under the sun, was another one of Solomon's uh, little sayings that he had. A time to be born and a time to die, again, was another one of the issues that Solomon identifies in this writing, as well as vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Solomon was trying his best. Again, he fell into extensive study. He gathered knowledge to try and find this purpose. And then he went on a journey of physical and emotional pleasure and sensuality, and he spared himself nothing, nothing. He says, anything that I wanted, I gave myself in order to find pleasure and to find purpose. He He gave himself into wine and building projects and massive garden projects, and he hired singers and animals he had. It was unbelievable the length that Solomon went through in order to find true, honest purpose in his life. And this is what he says: a person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their own toil. This too, I see, is from the hand of God. For without him, who can eat or find enjoyment? So, how do I stay focused on a living, good, and meaningful life and enjoying my relationship with God? How do I do that? Well, I think part of the way is we have to learn how to trust in who God is. And we have to learn how to follow him. And we have to learn how to live for him. You see, following God or following Christ is not an easy journey. Jesus said, you know what? Hey, guys, if the world hates me, guess what? They're going to hate you too if you're my follower. Jesus insists that each one of us trust in who he is, trust in what the scriptures have revealed as to the nature and the character of God, and we're called to live for him, to live our lives in a way that is uh, meaningful, in a way that shares who God is with other people around us, watching us live our life or participating in our lives, or that we come into contact with. And we're called to be a witness for him as we live that life. Solomon is saying here, he says, you know what? He says the best thing that you can do is to fear God and to keep his commandments. To fear God and to keep his commandments. You know, the purpose of the book of Ecclesiastes really is to reveal that every attempt for happiness has its own set of problems and turmoil. Therefore, really, the only rational response to this question of how do I find perfect peace and happiness and purpose in my life is to fear God and keep his commandments.